Hello everyone and welcome to another exciting commentary podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Steve Baxley.
And today we're talking about and watching the Batman Superman air quotes movie.
Yeah, world's finest.
World's finest. So this was a thing that I kind of considered, Steve, waiting for on Batchat or whatever the Superman equivalent of that is going to be, because I'd like to do commentaries on all the Superman animated series episodes also, because they're quite good.
Oh yeah, I love Superman the Animated Series. Their opening 3-part Krypton story is genius.
It's really good, and I really love how they handle Brainiac.
Yeah, I do too. That Superman the Animated Series I actually think is better than that Batman the Animated Series.
Honestly, it might be. I mean, they had so much experience under their belt at that point that they were able to keep it more as a cohesive continuity, I think, from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, they knew what they wanted to do with that show right from the get-go, and part of that shows with this movie in particular, where they're merging those worlds and they finally figured out what their identity is.
Well, and what I love is you hear people all the time say, whoever has really good sensibilities for Batman can't possibly also do a good Superman thing, and that wasn't true with Bruce Timm.
Wasn't true with Bruce Timm, isn't true with Grant Morrison, isn't true with Mark Waid.
Yeah, but I'm saying especially like on screen, you know, people tend to they look at certain directors and they're like, Tim Burton couldn't make a Superman movie, he's a Batman guy.
Yeah,
but that's not always the case.
The big argument against his Superman Lives thing.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that never happened, so I can't really make a statement about it. But I always thought that was really interesting that people seem to be kind of ignoring the elephant of, well, Bruce Timm did, and importantly, his Batman series is borrowing so much aesthetically from Fleischer that's clearly a guy that likes Superman in the first place.
Yeah, Bruce Timm has gotten famous for being the Batman guy, but I almost feel like he grew up a Superman kid.
Yeah, and Batman happened because it was popular. I mean, without 89, you wouldn't have that series. Yeah, that was Warner saying, this is a big deal right now. Kids are going to want a cartoon.
Yeah. And Bruce Timm just generally is a more optimistic, cheery person than even his Batman is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So today we're talking about more animated Batman episodes, except it's Superman. But it's Steve and I. It's your Batchat team doing more commentary for episodes of television, strung together to make a movie that was released on video. And of course I did a rewind on this a few weeks back, and that's why we're going to go ahead and do this now. If you have the DVD, and please don't listen to this commentary while watching the episode separately, because it won't sync up. We're watching the movie version, which means that at the end of each episode you won't have the end credits. So watch it that way, or of course you can listen to it as a commentary, and we will do our level best to provide some context for what we're talking about as we go along. Steve, let's go ahead and get right into it. This is, I want to say, a full hour.
Just about. I think it's a couple minutes short.
Like 56, 58 minutes. Okay.
Something like that.
Well, we'll just jump right into it. Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now.
One of the things immediately about this movie, and we'll get to it as this opening scene starts, but I really like that we opened this movie in Gotham City. Because this is a Superman episode, so sitting there as a kid and watching this as it airs and not knowing the events behind it, it is kind of it's got nice shock value.
Absolutely it does. And something that I wanted to talk about in my rewind and I didn't get to is each of our heroes here are introduced in really typical fashion.
Yes. Extremely natural comic book golden age fashion. Even Silver Age, honestly.
And I like that a lot.
And
what's cool is, you're right, it's subverting expectations if you're not aware that you're watching a big event episode, because you don't expect this tone, you don't expect to start in the rain and this atmosphere. Not to say that the Superman show never got creepy.
It certainly did, but it never opened creepy like this, I don't think.
And then all of a sudden, and there's the Joker. It's fantastic. And you're like, oh, cool. And it feels like you're watching a Batman episode right now. More to the point, it feels like you're watching the Batman series that was on right then.
Yeah, definitely. This was one of those things like Robin's Reckoning, where I had this on VHS that I copied from a Blockbuster VHS into one of my own back in the day, and I would watch it constantly. So there was like several sound bites and lines of dialogue here that are ingrained into my memory, and I can't get rid of them.
Obviously, this is a lot more of a novelty if you're looking at it as TV episodes than looking at it as a direct-to-video movie. And there are things that I wish, and I'm sure this is just a budgetary thing, there are things I wish they could have maybe done to tweak it for video. I don't mean having some sort of special edition thing, but it would have been cool to come up with transitions that wouldn't require you to have the commercial breaks.
Oh yeah, that would be interesting.
And I'll
I
point
kinda
out a
wish-
place where there is a kind of a neat transition that happens naturally, where there would have been a commercial break, but you almost don't notice it. And I
Well-
wish we somehow rather could have made that happen every time, but who knows if it was planned to be released this way in the first place.
Yeah, that's my thing. Is I'm not sure what the original production of this was like, and I know we talked about this with Robin's Reckoning, but I feel like you could have just gotten away with putting this out in theaters if you made it half an hour longer.
But I think you would have to spend a little bit more time on your animation.
But I think they would have had the budget to do that if they knew they were going to
absolutely.
get a movie.
Sure, but I mean, as you know, with Mask of the Phantasm, like we really ramped up the animation there, and we were pushing envelopes a little bit, and there was a little bit more depth to things. I'll point out a couple of places where there are some kind of corners cut that you probably wouldn't see in a movie. Like there's one spot where somebody's face in the background is just not there.
And there's also a part in the end of this where they recycle a scene we already saw in the movie.
I don't remember that. So there's the umpteenth different looking Bat computer, Steve. And one thing that I think would have been a really nice touch, especially since this is a Superman episode, would have been to establish the Batcave with the bats in the from the crane shot, like we always do.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I wish they'd done that.
No, that would have been fun.
So once again, introducing Superman in really typical fashion. Lois Lane is in danger, like she always is. Gee, I wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that, how self-aware all of that stuff is.
It's wonderful. I mean, you could use that as the log line for this movie. The whole point is, gee, I wonder what's going to happen. The rules in this world are the comic book rules, and these people are figuring that out.
Yeah, it's a fun movie, if nothing else. This movie does exactly what every good Superman episode did, which is, at its best, it was really enjoyable, and that's about it.
Yeah, and there are some cool ideas and things to talk about, but it's more interesting to discuss as that self-aware thing, and in simply comparing the differences between these characters, which is handled pretty subtly, and we're not too super on the nose about it.
Yeah.
And we don't have to make them angsty and angry at each other in order to have that.
Their one-upsmanship towards the end of this first part is one of my favorite Batman Superman moments, and we'll talk about it when we get there.
My biggest gripe about this, and visually, and I talked about this in the rewind, is I really don't think the character models go together.
I grew up with them together, so it's hard for me to not think that they do.
And see, of course, I was the age the animated series was aimed at when it was on, and so I lived through, as I was getting older, the new Batman adventures starting and not liking those designs, and then just seeing, because like, even though you grew up with them together, you have to admit they're different, and this is based on the original models.
No, that's definitely
So
true.
what you're looking at here is what these characters would have looked like in 1992 in first season Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. It's weird because I have no attachment whatsoever to any of the Batman animated series voice actors, but at the same time, when someone's like, "New Batman Adventures really screwed up with the Joker design when they missed his lips," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I guess they did. I just never think about it."
Yeah, and I also can't get around, Harley Quinn has lips. Why doesn't
Bruce
he?
has gone back and said that the guy who made that idea to not put the lips on the Joker has talked about it, and they both say that it's a really bad idea and they shouldn't have done it. But I just never thought of it that way. I grew up with him both with and without lips.
If you're gonna do it, at least be consistent.
That's true.
Something I thought of watching this again that has never occurred to me, and you're gonna laugh at me because you're gonna be like, yes, of course. In the bazillions of things I've seen with Lex's assistant slash sidekick Mercy, hench lady Mercy, is she's called Mercy because she has none.
That was always my favorite in joke with her.
It never occurred to me, but oh yes, of course. He's laughing at me.
Oh, I always like that joke. It's specifically because Lex Luthor is this on the face of it, philanthropist, nice guy that everyone loves, and his henchman's name is Mercy. Like, he's going around to children's hospitals, and he's calling a girl named Mercy. It's just bizarre. It's hilarious to me.
I like that this Lex has a handkerchief in his pocket shaped like the first letter of his name.
Oh, I never noticed that.
And it's also shaped exactly like the font of the L in his logo.
I never noticed that. That's cool.
So here's one of those fun pseudo risque for a kid shows things. We'll see a number of those in this. There's sexual innuendo in this movie.
Oh yeah, there is quite a bit. There's some sexual innuendo, and then there's also just some violent concepts.
Oh well, they at least don't let the commercial breaks linger.
No, they don't.
I'm in the black.
They do a pretty good job of editing this together, if nothing else. So I really like the voice of Lex Luthor in this. This guy has always been my favorite Lex Luthor voice, aside from James Marsters in Doomsday.
Yeah, man, I sure wish we got James Marsters in something better than that movie. Now, I like their Lex. I mean, Lex was not the problem with that movie.
No, Lex is not the problem with that movie. I love the whole thing with him beating up Superman's clone because he can't get over the fact that he's dead, but both that voice and this voice are the ones that come to my mind when I read the comics. And I only have that with two animated series, or two Bruce Timm-related products. One is Superman and one is Lex. I don't hear any other voice actors of this universe when I'm reading comics, not even Kevin Conroy or Mark Hamill.
Yeah, and for me, it just depends on what version it's close to. Like, there are certain comics that I'll read and I'll kind of have a Michael Keaton or I'll kind of have a Christian Bale.
The thing is, like, I don't think we've ever gotten, like, the definitive Batman voice in animation. I feel like
there is such a thing because there's so many different versions of that character.
Exactly. Like, Brave and the Bold was perfect for Brave and the Bold. Beware's was perfect for Beware. The Batman was perfect for the Batman, and Conroy was good for this. So it's hard to, like, pick one above the rest.
So I've been reading the Injustice comics lately.
Those are so good.
And I'm becoming fixated with this notion of Joker as potentially the best possible arch-nemesis for Superman as well as Batman. Like, it's not something we've done a lot until recently, and this does it. This suggests that because the Joker is so hard to pin down and you don't know what he's going to do in the future, he's unpredictable, that it's hard for Superman to go up against him. And now that I've seen a thing with Injustice where Joker is the reason he goes off the deep end and becomes a fascist dictator, I want to see more things tackle that. I think it's a really cool idea.
I do too. I
want to see
love
the Superman versus Joker live action movie.
There's some stuff in that in the comics. I know. I think it's American Alien that does this. The Max Landis book where Superman meets up with the Joker once. If it's not that, it's something more recent. But Superman and the Joker would be a fascinating relationship. Emperor Joker is a brilliant concept that doesn't work at all.
I still haven't read that.
It's getting put out in trade recently, but I really don't like it. It's in those years that I think kind of killed Superman comics, and they just haven't recovered from it since. But that's a good comparison, and I also love Batman versus Lex Luthor. Whole Rock of Ages JLA Morrison arc where
there's that bit where somebody's got a face that's not there. It's Mercy. Mercy's face is missing.
Oh, I didn't notice that. That's hilarious. But JLA Rock of Ages, the Morrison arc, the whole idea behind that is Lex Luthor uses the Injustice League to take out the Justice League as if it's a corporate takeover.
Yeah.
And it's a genius idea.
See, I feel like Batman versus Lex is something that happens a lot more often than Joker versus Superman.
They have confrontations, definitely. The scene where we're going to get to in the second part of this where Batman intimidates Lex is adapted in the comics after No Man's Land, after Lex comes in to try and rebuild the city. Okay. So there's lots of occasions post-90s where those two characters have met.
Try the Motel 9. Because, we can't say 6. This is a tiny nitpick. I don't like it when the Joker says not clown Joker. I'm like, well, you're the clown prince of crime. Like, you've called yourself a clown before.
That's true.
Harley on a
I
pogo
don't
stick.
like it in other contexts. I like it in this one because the Joker of the Bruce Timm verse is a guy that doesn't like the joke to ever be on him. So a clown is demeaning to him unless he calls himself that.
Fair enough.
Because there's a whole thing. Alex did this whole video before his channel got shut down, where he discussed the Joker as the having the biggest ego, and how every episode of he was in had to end on a line where Joker was the butt of the joke, and he couldn't take it. And that's ultimately how he loses in Return of the Joker.
Yeah, and if it doesn't end that way, it ends like it does here, where he finds the joke, whatever awful thing is happening, or whatever hilarious, and he's laughing to his own doom. But I don't think he's laughing at the joke being on him at that point.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that when we get there. But there is kind of a punchline there for the Joker that I think is really interesting.
Yeah. The Joker laughs in this freak me out. They still do. I think they're really good.
This is some of the best Joker writing in the whole series and continuity, I think.
In the whole DCAU, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I like a lot of these lines are memorable and stick with me.
Yeah. There's the interactions with the Joker in this whole thing are pretty brilliant. And we'll get to my favorite one at the end where Batman's like he probably is when the thing blows up.
Now that I'm thinking about it, and again we'll get to it, but actually the punchline would sort of be a thing that's on the Joker, but maybe he's the only person laughing because nobody else would have picked up on it. I'm not sure.
It's possible.
We'll talk about it when we get there.
There's a lot of that with this. It's so short, and yet we're still so early.
Yeah, there's but like a lot of these things, it's pretty dense. So everything we want to talk about, we have to kind of rush a little bit.
Does it annoy you? Because this always bugs me that New Adventures of Batman's character model, Bruce's eyebrows are shaped like a bat.
Yes, that's one of the things I don't like about it. One of the many things. And again, putting him in. Oh, look, Bruce and Lex don't have faces for a second.
That's true. I didn't notice.
So we do get a little bit of at least Bruce Wayne versus Lex Luthor here. We don't go as far as we do with Superman versus Joker.
Yeah.
But we do have a comparison between them and what they're about.
Lex is my biggest problem with this movie in just that he's so shafted. Like everything he does just turns out wrong, and he can't ever get a break, and he never comes off as the sort of intimidating that he should.
Yeah, he's made kind of the butt of the thing, but then at the same time, I think it's hard for that not to happen when he's dealing with the Joker.
See, but I that is the case. It's just a matter of like Lex should at some point be learning from his mistakes, and it seems like he never does. Like he keeps picking the worst plans to get himself out of the already worst plans.
Yeah, and you'd think he'd be, and he's proven himself in other places and later to be more adaptable than that.
Especially in Superman the Animated Series. Superman the Animated Series does a really great job of Lex being able to dodge accountability for most of what he does. And then he's kind of a moron throughout most of this.
I'm gonna say that Lois is drinking a screwdriver.
Probably.
Just the tint of orange in that glass, it looks like a screwdriver.
Bruce Wayne, for some reason, has some kind of romantic tension with almost every main female character in the DCAU. He's got it with Zatanna, he's got it with Wonder Woman, he's got it with Lois Lane.
And he somehow, or rather, just by looking at her, brainwashes her into falling in love with him.
Yeah, I don't understand that. That's another issue with this movie, is that they get together way too quickly.
Yeah, they get together too quickly, and Bruce is completely out of character.
Yeah, I don't like that. I like the person. It
doesn't work when you have the Andrea Beaumont thing.
No, it doesn't work when you have the Andrea Beaumont.
There's no reason he only gets together with women to save face, and if he does really fall for someone, he's got to seriously consider giving up Batman, and that doesn't happen. He thinks he can have his cake and eat it too for some reason.
Yeah, I mean that's almost more of where the Batman versus Superman intention in this movie comes from. Is just Clark Kent likes Lois and Lois likes Bruce Wayne.
The nice thing is that's a love triangle that kind of works okay. I love the colors there. That shot of him dropping down is just a really cool shot in general. But like the club. Wait, why do all the lights stop? What makes all the blinking lights stop blinking and be different colors?
I guess when Batman descends from above, the lights just get too afraid.
Oh, okay. I mean, I realize the DJ stops the music, but
Batman
wait a
is
minute.
dark
No, that's dumb. Somebody he throws something into a light that is still red. Okay, we have only red lights apparently. Okay.
It's a really weird scene, but I do like this. Every time I watch The Dark Knight and Batman's trying to take out Maroni from the club and he drops him and breaks his legs, I always think back to this scene.
Batman, I think that was too dangerous, and you must know that you're in an animated show where you're not gonna hurt any of the innocent bystanders, because he throws a cage with a girl in it at a guy.
That was hilarious. This whole thing where he's choking the guy at the door, if you were a kid, was pretty violent at the time.
One of the things that I meant to talk about in the rewind, but it was already too long, so I skimped on it, was, as I said, some of these kind of pseudo-adult things that are here, and if you're an adult, you know what they're representing, but we don't go real far for kids. This is a strip club.
Yeah.
All the women are fully clothed. They're closed women. They're very closed-minded women.
They're closed.
They're closed. Go home. We're closed.
Because they're in cages.
Yeah, they're enclosed. They're enclosed women.
So
but yeah, they're fully clothed, but it's a strip club.
Later in the Bruce Timm animated universe, Batman says that I think the episode is. I think it's Injustice for All. I think it's Injustice for All. But Bruce Wayne says that he carries a piece of kryptonite with him at all times, and that piece is you can consistently trace it through this movie.
Like the Kryptonian key in Smallville.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Now, I guess he keeps it in lead all the time.
Yes.
I guess he's smart enough not to have it like out where it can get to his skin. Because they do the thing in this universe where Lex gets irradiated because he doesn't realize that, but it's not a ring. It's just a piece like it is with Batman.
That's right? Yeah. They do that later in Justice League. That's when the Joker, I think, first shows up in Justice League as well.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, I always like that. It does the thing that Justice League and Justice League Unlimited always did for me, where they set up this really brilliant, dark idea and then just turn it into cartoon action. Because that's exactly how that episode goes, where you open with Lex Luthor getting radiation sickness, and then it's just Team Supervillains versus Team Superheroes. Nothing more.
That's funny.
I love this, by the way. I love Bruce Wayne tracking Superman down like this and then giving him the thumbs up that we're about to see. I love that scene so much.
I like that he's taking the time. This is a thing that Batman does, where he's just taking the time to have his moment.
Yes,
where
exactly.
He knows that Clark's going to find it. He knows he's going to look out the window because Clark's going to know Batman's there. Because somehow or other, Clark knows that this is a thing Batman does. Batman, I'm pretty sure, has 45-hour days.
He must.
Because he has the... Okay, that's the transition. I got to mention this real quick. I would be real surprised if on TV... that wasn't a commercial break.
I thought it was the end of the episode.
It might have even been the end of the episode. What's cool about it is
mark, right?
It goes to black, but it's exactly the transition you'd think you'd have when you had a movie, and what makes it work is that bell tone in the score.
That's true.
It goes to black and then it goes ding, and I want to go back and see these episodes again and see if that's even there or if they added it.
They probably added it. You mentioned this earlier, and you're right. Bruce Wayne is completely out of character in this. At the same time, I love how jokey or more upbeat this Batman and Bruce Wayne is. Like when he's talking with Lois towards the end, he's cracking jokes. The thing he's doing here with Clark, he's so much more laid back. I really like that approach to Batman.
He's likable. I like that too. I can't help but wonder if we're not kind of rewriting him a little bit to fit the show better.
We are. It's a problem for sure. It's just I've always preferred a Batman that isn't overly serious, or at least isn't overly self-serious.
It's fun, yeah. The problem is when you have to, unless you lived with it or you just, have heard people talk about this, you have to look it up to even know what series you're watching.
Yeah.
So when it opens like a Batman episode, and you either think it was a direct-to-video movie or you think it was an episode of Batman before it was an episode of Superman, that stuff is weird and is jarring and stuff. And I'm not saying that the people that you know, the producers making this would have thought of that, because they're making Superman episodes. But yet the thing is, he's out of character. He's not out of character, right? Like when he's in the Batsuit, he's exactly what you're used to seeing. So I think they wrote a totally different character.
That's true, particularly towards the end when we're getting to Batman and Superman trying to stop the Joker.
He pulls Kryptonite on Superman.
Yeah,
he knows that this is a guy he might have to take down or try to control at some point. So I mean, he still has that, you know, distrusting, sensibility about him. Yeah,
you're right. It is kind of inconsistent with that.
So I think it's inconsistent within the piece as much as it is, with their other show. Like I said, that is the biggest problem with it. But it's more with that relationship than it is anything.
It's weird because they're so reverential. The problem is in connection to Mask of the Phantasm, and at the same time, Andrea Beaumont is the same voice actress that plays Lois Lane, and what Joker is doing in this is very similar to what he was doing in Mask of the Phantasm.
That's a really good point. And somebody mentioned that in the comments and was surprised that I didn't bring that up. Honestly, it never occurred to me that was the same voice. I didn't even know that.
That always bugged me as a kid. Like, in my head, I had a canon of, okay, Andrea Beaumont went away, dyed her hair black, and became Lois Lane.
This is one of those instances where, and I think this is a really important thing to note for storytelling, for particularly an action-driven thing like this, where a coincidence totally works. Where Bruce falls out the window, and he lands in a scaffolding thing, and you're like, oh, that's convenient, that scaffolding was there. But then Joker shoots it out, and he falls, and he has to just grab onto one of the ledges, and it's a tense action thing, and he might still not make it. So like that scaffolding might not have been there, and he would have done the same thing. So like that's a thing that kind of works.
Plus, I mean,
now then you have the thing where where bullets never hit people.
No, that
and
is
you don't know if Joker's actually trying to kill him or not.
Yeah, no, that's a problem. The thing with the falling off the ledge, it never bugs me when that happens, particularly when you're doing it in a bigger city, because bigger cities have construction all the time. Chances are 9 times out of 10 you will probably have something to grab onto if you fall out of a building.
I think we should test this theory. Oh wait.
It depends on how many parachutes you have.
Let's pull a Letterman and go to the top of a roof and drop a pinball machine off a building and see where it lands.
That used to be one of my favorite segments on Letterman, just dropping
or
things
10,000 Super Balls.
The Kryptonite dragon thing is such a cool design. It's something that as a kid I thought was really cool, and I don't know why Kryptonite wasn't always more creatively drawn.
I think in this case it's because the Joker has to steal something that fits in his wheelhouse.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely just
I love
there for
this
that
idea
reason.
The Joker cracks me up in this. He would not have even come up with this plan or tried to kill Superman if that thing wasn't a smiling dragon. Probably.
It is a little weird, though, because how old is the dragon?
They tell us it's only a few decades old.
Okay, because
it's not like
it would have to have
old,
arrived at the same time as Superman.
But I don't buy that there would be that much kryptonite on the planet.
DC Animated Universe, I don't know. I feel like they can get away with that a little bit more.
I don't know. This seems to be one of those universes where kryptonite is super, super rare, and there wasn't that. I mean, remember, like a little piece of home? Like, it was a super tiny chunk of it. I don't know where we found all that kryptonite.
No, that's true.
Okay, You Are Here is always funny, no matter
Kryptonite just needs a better... Huh?
I don't know why this is, but anytime a bad guy or anybody has a map like that and says You Are Here, it's always funny.
That's true. Also, computers don't work that way. You wouldn't be able to do that.
No, you wouldn't.
Are set, so you can't do that.
My favorite instance of You Are Here is, and I'm going to reference the Tick again. There's an animated Tick episode where the Tick is in this really big giant box store and he's trying to buy a microwave. and he goes to a map on the wall and it says You Are Here, and then the Tick looks over at Arthur and says, Oh, being here is a lot like being lost, Arthur.
That's hilarious.
I had the action figure of Superman in this lead suit.
I've always wanted that one. That was one of the few I never had from the series, and I love that he had the foresight to do that. Like he didn't just rush in.
So, this Joker is, of course, scarier because he's unpredictable, and through this whole scene, it's playing it like the Joker doesn't know what that suit does, but he was, of course, anticipating this all along.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that. The animation here is nowhere near as good as Mask of the Phantasm, but it is certainly a lot better than just the standard episodes of these shows. So when Superman gets sprayed with this acid here, it's kind of scary.
I think you're right. I mean, they're definitely bringing their A game because of the material, and because this is a
animation itself, it's the art direction that's making all of those moves feel more impactful.
Yeah, we know how monumental an occasion this is.
Which, by the way, I just have to mention that for kids, this was certainly a novelty, but I say this a lot where when I grew up, I didn't just watch one version of Batman, I always had like several. So the idea of Batman and Superman existing in a universe together didn't play for me as much of a novelty as this probably should have.
Well,
like I just always thought this was inevitable.
You grew up where there already had been more than one animated series. Now, there were a couple of cartoons before this, of course.
Well, I mean, when I grew up, most of what I saw was animated series. But even with the animated series, I was reading comics at the same time. Yeah. So having already read comics and having a knowledge of a version of these characters that do coexist, it just felt inevitable to me for these versions to collide.
And even if it was inevitable, even if it was an inevitable yay, Steve, it's still fun to finally see it happen because. Of course, yeah. If you were, if you think about it linearly, in real time, 1992 to now, 4 or 5 years, you're waiting to finally get to see this. And
yeah, this was 97, so it's been at least 5 years.
I would make the argument that, doing math, it's been 5 years, and I would make the argument that if you're a kid and Superman the Animated Series comes out, you're waiting for this from day one.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense.
So, like it would be more of a novelty because you're waiting for it, not, oh, wow, I never would have thought of that. They're finally going to cross them.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And that's why it was exciting.
I really like Batman and Superman's working together throughout all of this. It's very easy to just keep the antagonism going of, like, I have one way of getting out, you have another way of getting out, let's keep fighting until the last minute kind of thing, and they don't do that. They take every opportunity to make it easier for themselves by working together.
They also very naturally create scenarios. By they, I mean the writers and producers here. We're creating scenarios where we're buying that these two people need each other and have to work together.
Yeah, which makes Justice League more natural. Which, by the way, speaking of writing, this line never made any sense to me. Where Batman is like, it will take a week for this to eat through the wall, and then Superman's like, no, kryptonite? Why wouldn't Batman just immediately melt the kryptonite? Why does he have to say that?
He might not know the properties of it enough to know that would work.
But he already tested it. That's what he was doing in the opening of this movie.
Oh, that's right. He did do that.
It doesn't make any sense for him to say that. Why wouldn't your first guess to be just get rid of the kryptonite and save Superman? Even if you can't melt it, just throw it somewhere.
Boy, that's a really good point. Yeah, and in that moment, it makes Superman feel like he's got more common sense and street smarts than Batman. And kind of the point of this is that he doesn't.
And this scene right here is the one I was talking about. The thing with the marbles here, where they're all about to blow up, the explosion scene we see, they recycle again at the end when they're blowing up the marbles the second time.
It's exactly because the ground is the same color.
Yep, it's exactly the same. They just take that shot and put it in again.
Whoa, you're right. That's hilarious.
It is hilarious.
So how do these marbles work exactly? Like, what is it that sets them off? Because they blow up at different times. So, like, do they have to... Question. Is there a tiny pin that you can't see that they have to roll onto? Or, like, what is it that causes it? I always thought it'd be cool. I like the exploding marble gag. I think it's cool. But I always thought it'd be cool if they had to knock into each other. And, like, that's what makes them explode.
Why does Batman need to do that? Why does he need to grapple to the wing of his Batwing and fly away? He couldn't just park it and get on.
Because as the Joker says later, he has flight envy or whatever it is he says.
Yes, probably.
That's what it is.
That's not a complaint. It's just Batman being overly complicated for no reason.
Overly dramatic. He's Batman.
Like, what if you miss?
He's in Metropolis. He's got to. He's not gonna miss in front of Superman. That's not gonna happen. And in front of Lois. That's not gonna happen.
But it's a possibility. There's wind currents and stuff. How is your grapnel reliable enough to not get blown away?
I want to mention another fun running gag in this, which is, and I didn't remember this before. Mercy is perpetually throughout this, like incrementally having to get more and more bandages.
Oh yeah, that's always fun.
And when and it didn't occur to me until now that it's Harley that causes that every time.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
she takes her out in the car, and then she's got a bandage on her head through the whole movie, and she's about to fight her again here. So once again, bullets don't hit anyone.
Bullets don't hit anyone, and Lex Luthor has to go in like an idiot, just gun blazing, literally.
And I think that might be a rule that they're aware of. That's another one of those comic book things where you're like, okay, in this world, bullets don't hit people. We're in a children's show. We're in a comic book.
Is it just me, or is this animation with Lex when he's yelling at Joker look extremely cartoony?
It's way over the top.
Like, that just cements my further problem of Lex being the worst part of this.
Yeah, his mouth looked 50 feet wide there.
He looked like he belonged in a Looney Tunes episode.
And when we had that problem, which is appropriate, it's a Warner Brothers thing.
That's true. I love this trope, by the way, of two people having a conversation and someone doing something like getting beat up in the background. That's always funny to me.
So Lex comes in, and he says, we need to have a conversation, and he was, you'd think, pretty clearly having Mercy with that big giant gun trying to take them out.
What if he hit them?
What if he hit them? And that's why I'm saying they have to know that they live in a universe where bullets don't hit people. What exactly was the point of that? Is he just trying to reassert his authority and his power? Like, look, clown, you might be unpredictable and crazy, but I've got all these resources and I can kill you anytime I want.
Which he can't.
Which he can. I just love that right after he almost gets shot to death, the very next thing that the Joker says is basically, okay, so I want $2 billion now.
That's a very Joker line. Harley and Joker's relationship in this is one of the few times I like it. Everyone knows I hate Harley Quinn as a character, but I like her in this. I think she's fun.
I mean, I like her in this. I don't agree with Steve that she's a bad character, but
I like her in this, though.
I think she's a really inconsistent character, and even inside the same continuity, we oftentimes can't decide what exactly she is. But there are certain versions of her that I like a lot.
I can't think of a single version I like. I can enjoy versions of her every now and then, but it's always in spite of the concept. But the thing here with Bruce Wayne, or not Bruce Wayne, with Clark and Lois talking about what's going on with Joker and Lex, and sounding like they're trying to work on this angle as reporters. I wish we would do that more with Superman in general. Because this is around the time Lex Luthor got elected president, and the whole thing in the comics was Superman can't take him down, so it's the power of the press that's going to have to, and we never cashed that out. We ruined that with what Jeff Loeb did, and it's mentioned a little bit here, and I really wish that that's what versions of Superman would gravitate towards, of Clark Kent is a reporter first, and how does that work?
I don't know if this has ever been done. And I think it would have been a great thing to do maybe here, although I like this movie a lot. Why not do a story where Clark Kent, out of the Superman costume, investigates with Batman in costume?
I would love that. It would be a buddy cop.
Because that's where Batman could really identify with him, potentially. Clark is more of a detective than anybody ever gives him credit for. And this notion that, and I mean, I like it here okay, certainly, but this notion that Superman relies too much on his powers, and so he hasn't developed the skills that Batman develops, is true for Superman, but we have to kind of ignore the Clark Kent side of that for that to work, right?
Yeah, which is inconsistent within this universe, because in this universe, Clark Kent is the man and Superman is the persona.
Yeah, and if you watch just this, that does not seem to be the case.
Yeah, and it especially if you watch the episodes that come before this and after this in the context of that show, as it was supposed to be aired.
Speaking of that, there are some fun threads that are building between episodes right around this that may or may not be done on purpose. I think it's really funny that Joker is going through money woes, and even though we don't explain how he somehow or rather survives the end of this, because we never do, the next time we see him, he gets rich again.
Yeah. And then also the fact that the Superman's immediately distrusting of Batman because in this universe, his mother told him Batman was crazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's one of the first things that happens in I think it's the second or third episode where Ma Kent's like, don't be like the nut in Gotham. And they have a conversation about Batman being crazy.
Oh, I forgot all about that.
I really like those first few episodes of Superman. I rewatch those occasionally.
I haven't done that in a long time, so I'm really rusty on him, but I remember being just absolutely delighted by it, watching it in order. And that is a show that even a lot more so than Batman the Animated Series is much more enjoyable, and you get a lot more out of it if you watch it in the order it was aired.
In the order it was aired, and especially if you binge it. I feel like binging Batman the Animated Series doesn't work anywhere near as well as binging Superman.
Yeah, which, like I said, when I did it, I was like, wow, this is... I mean, it's not exactly an ongoing story, but there's a lot of stuff you pick up on if you do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to pick up on. It's a show that never stops. It never loses itself. Like, Batman the Animated Series took a long time to find its footing, and even when it did, it was very inconsistent with quality. Superman has bad episodes, but the bad episodes just aren't entertaining. And the good episodes are either extremely entertaining or really smartly written.
Yeah.
I like this boat plan. I just love the trope of Superman having to save boats. The John Byrne comics do that a lot. The first time he meets Lex Luthor in the John Byrne stuff, it's also Batman is fun envy, like we said.
That's right. Oh, propulsion envy. That's what it was.
Propulsion envy, yeah.
That just came to me.
I like this idea of Batman having those metal gliders he has to attach on, because that's a very natural way to eventually get to the Batman Beyond suit.
Good point. I also think that these spindly robot things are how we eventually get to the disembodied head of Mr. Freeze.
Probably so. Those things always freaked me out as a kid as well.
But I don't
know
think that we ever came out and said that technology was LexCorp technology, so this is the SS Atlantis, and we haven't done Aquaman yet.
Yeah, we won't do Aquaman for a while until Justice League episode 2 or 3.
So I don't know if anybody knows Atlantis exists in this universe yet, but that is named after a thing that they might think is mythical that's actually real.
If I remember correctly, Atlantis exists in this universe and people know of it. It's a myth. It's a myth, sort of. It's very weird because, like, the thing that Aquaman does in that episode is, like, he just walks onto the beach and goes to the United Nations building and finally represents Atlantis. So it's there. People just, like, have a tendency to ignore its existence.
Oh, so nobody's like, holy crap, Atlantis!
No, people are like that mostly because, like, it's gotten forgotten.
Oh, okay.
It's interesting. The Aquaman episodes of Justice League are really good.
Batman, you gotta be really careful when you're flying around on a thing that would explode if you hit it with the right thing.
Yeah.
Duck and roll. He practices duck and roll all the time just in case that happens.
If you go to random rooftops in Gotham City, will you be able to find those grapnels? Because they don't disintegrate like Spider-Man's webbing.
Apparently now at this point, you'll even find a few of them in Metropolis.
Yeah, really.
There's some really cool details here. There's a bus that passes by that has a Daily Planet sticker on the side, and if you blink, you miss it. And obviously the Daily Planet is in this. I'm not saying that's a cool Easter egg. I'm just saying, like, we didn't have to put a Daily Planet sticker on the side of that. You only see it for, like a fraction of a second.
I do like that. I like that we get to see the printing room underneath the Daily Planet in this, because I don't remember if we get that anywhere else.
Yeah, you're right. Opening up the architecture of this building.
Yeah. Batman busting through windows with his wings extended is just another visual that's burned into my brain.
Yeah, which is a thing that you saw in the animated series a lot. I feel like this is in a weird way from in the Batman side. kind of a tribute to the animated series. We're getting back to basics a little bit, because again, this is in the middle of the run of New Batman Adventures, but none of Batman's sidekicks are in this, and that series is all about Batman's sidekicks.
Yeah, we're certainly trying to give that series a little bit of a cap off. Like this would, I feel like the way this aired doesn't support this, but I think their intention was this would be the transition point for both characters and building into Justice League. Like this was the thing that was supposed to get our feet wet for everyone existing together and saying goodbye to what they did before.
Yeah.
And Justice League still wouldn't be for a few years after this.
It's also kind of neat to get to see Metropolis at night as much as we do in this.
Oh yeah, that's
which
true.
Of course they're doing because they don't like to. Bruce Timm famously doesn't like putting Batman in the daylight because he thinks it just doesn't look good, and it's hard to make him seem as intimidating as he's supposed to. And then of course we get to Justice League, we're kind of forced to, and we have to.
Does this cowl thing bug you?
Oh yes, this is another thing that I wanted to talk about in the rewind that I didn't get to. But this thing is pretty contrived and manufactured, mostly because maybe I did talk about this in the rewind. I can't remember. It's a situation that I totally buy. Like if he got pushed up against that thing, yes, that's what would happen, or is likely to happen, or maybe he would just get choked to death. I mean, that's why capes are a bad idea. That's according to Edna Mode. But the problem is, other contrivances before this, there are so many situations where we avoid as much as we can places where Batman would lose his cowl so that a person in front of him wouldn't see that happen, that when it finally happens in a sort of realistic way, it seems contrived.
Yeah. Yeah, that's partly why it bugs me. Like
Superman, why was your cape fluttering? There's no wind.
Because it looks cool.
Oh, that's a good reason. Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
No, you're. That was all I was going to say. Is that it is a little contrived. I like seeing Batman in costume with the cowl off. I think that's always a cool visual, and we never get enough of it.
Yeah.
So to have as much of it as we do in this continuity is cool. It's just I wish it was done more naturally. It's kind of like the Power Rangers thing, where like it's reused Japanese footage. So getting those actors in suits is part of the novelty.
Yeah, and it makes the whole situation seem more contrived, because if that hadn't happened, what would happen? Lois would move to Gotham, and then you'd have some amount of time before she finally found out that he was Batman, and then she'd either, decide to stay with him like Vicky Vale, and then, except she doesn't show up for no good reason later. Yeah. Or she would just do exactly what she does here and leave, but it's all got to happen inside of this hour-long movie, so conveniently that doesn't happen. I also think it's out of character for Lois Lane to drop everything she's doing and move to another city, no matter how enamored or smitten she is with a guy, especially to move to Gotham.
I would buy that maybe if they were dating for like 5 years. And that's still
even a year or two, but the problem is, I mean, she'd have to be really enamored with him and really trust him in order to do that. And I mean, she is, this Lois Lane, she's snarky and she has a great sense of humor, but she's very no nonsense and she's very independent. And I feel like she's, I don't know, she's got too much self-discipline to do that. But also, she doesn't like Batman, and she doesn't like the idea of Batman. So by extension, I don't buy that she'd like Gotham either.
Yeah, no, I don't really like that. Lois Lane doesn't come back more than maybe a couple times in Justice League, and I kind of wish she did so we could talk about some of that more.
Yeah, because I like and I like the idea of her falling in love with Bruce Wayne, because she thinks that he is the equivalent of Superman, except his power is money as opposed to superpowers. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, and it works for animated series Bruce Wayne in particular, because he's not the bumbling playboy. He is the smart businessman. And
called a philanthropist all the time.
Exactly.
So he seems to be the altruistic rich person, where he proves that money does not necessarily corrupt and is the root of all evil.
And by the time you get to New Batman Adventures, he is more serious in his business relations. The goofiness completely drops out of Bruce Wayne's personality in New Adventures, which is a problem with that show, because then why wouldn't people just guess he's Batman? But it works for the Lois Lane relationship.
Well, he should have started Batman Incorporated then, because people would have totally bought it. Especially in that series, because it's all about the sidekicks. So you totally could have had that.
That's true. That's very true. See, like the stuff with the Joker here. There's no reason Lex Luthor should be falling for any of this.
Why would you open that? You're an idiot.
Right? Like, he's the butt of these jokes. It really diminishes that character, and we do this consistently with him after this.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that was I hate this word because it sounds unfair, but that was maybe a little bit lazy.
Yeah.
Like, we'll just have him open that pouch while he's saying, I abhor violence and I'll have mercy do it. But the thing, so you keep talking about things that were burned in your brain watching this as a kid. The big one for me is the giant wing with the smile painted on it flying through the city. I don't know why that always stuck with me.
I've always questioned that, because I like the idea of Joker flying a giant smile. My issue is just there should be one more line and cutting through the middle so there's top and bottom teeth and not just top.
Yeah, it doesn't actually look like a smile.
Exactly. I never thought it was a smile until someone told me it was supposed to be a smile. The other thing I want to mention, we talked a little bit over this before when we had the Lois Lane stuff. But Superman and Batman within the DC animated universe start as a friendship, as people that trust each other, as legitimate friends.
Yeah.
And then slowly drift apart through Justice League. And that drifting is natural for this. But in the comics, we've now made that the permanent status quo. I miss the days when Batman and Superman were just buddies. Like, they would just hang out with each other and talk to each other about things that were not crime-related.
Yeah, because the thing is, they are very different, and it makes sense that would, from the start, cause animosity, and that they might drift apart because of it, but they also could be, like, a married couple that works really well together, where they each need something the other one has, and those differences are necessary for the relationship and for the partnership. And that's that's the big idea behind their partnership in this movie, that and the character arc that they have together, which is discovering that they each have something the other one needs.
Yeah, exactly. And part of what the DC Animated Universe did a really good job of is made a case for why all of those characters were friends, and that's why they were heroes. Like, they weren't just this tool to go out and solve everyone's problems. They were people. Yeah. They had relationships with each other. They had fights, but more so than that, they had to learn to work together. They had to communicate. Flash and Hawkgirl have this amazing big sister, little brother relationship. Superman and Batman had a brotherly relationship that slowly went away because of political stuff in that series. Like, here, there's that moment where Superman punches down the door and he's like, after you. We don't see that anymore. Particularly in New 52, where the Justice League just hates each other for no reason.
Maybe that new, what looks like it might be kind of a more little kid type Justice League show will do that.
I hope it does. Brave and the Bold did that. There was a great episode with the Trinity where, after crime fighting, in costume, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman got fast food.
That's awesome.
They just sat there.
Well, because Batman never takes his costume off of that show.
No one does.
You see Bruce Wayne like one time.
Yeah, there's a great scene where Superman's in costumes, got a milkshake and a hot dog or a hamburger, and he's like, when I'm talking about the American way, this is what I mean.
That's awesome! I still haven't watched all that. I gotta see that.
It's so good. I love that show. I love the way Batman and Superman working together in this fight. Bruce Timm is always really good about directing the Justice League's action scenes, and so seeing Batman and Superman jump around each other, it looks really good visually.
Yeah, and people like to complain sometimes that the animated series had a really stiff-moving Batman. They have corrected that at this point. That leap he just did looks really good.
Yeah. The animation for this universe gets better over time. I mean, the character models are arguable, but I think their range of motion and such gets much, much better, particularly when you have to do stuff like The Flash.
This is quintessential Superman and Lex Luthor stuff. I feel like, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I feel like these robots are probably programmed. It sure plays like this. I don't know if this is true, but it feels like they've got to be programmed if they go up against Superman to know what Superman's like ethics and morality is, because why else would you take the person that is tied to you and keep flipping her to Superman so that he won't attack you because he'll hit a person?
Yeah.
You have to know who you're going up against to make that move, and that is a wonderful way in an action scene to, first of all, not just be a generic action scene where the personalities of the characters are involved in the scene and driving it, but also to, without any kind of words, demonstrate once again how much that you understand what Superman's all about.
And Bruce Timm was very good about that.
He's not no puncher.
He's very consistently good at that kind of stuff. And particularly when we talk about the Fleischer inspiration for this, Superman fighting these giant robots is absolutely Fleischer. But then the more modern spin on it is what you said with hiding a person or putting kryptonite on it. Smile on the Moon is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Call back to '89? Maybe? Probably not.
Maybe. I mean, it's too direct to not be a reference to something, and it's probably '89.
Well, and of course he's. You know what? It's got to be, or if it's not, it's a wonderful accidental nod, because he mentions that the reason he's so excited about this giant wing, as he calls it, is because it's 100,000 times bigger than Batman's.
Which it is. And
look at me, and he's got to be excited that he's getting to fly around Metropolis in this big giant thing, which is protected by the guy who flies naturally.
I mean, seriously, Batman has a complex about these things. He really wishes he could fly.
So I don't know, as I said in the rewind, what exactly Joker's motivation is for destroying everything that is Lex's, and I realize that he's an insane person and has a tendency to just do stuff, but he has that lucid moment where he's like, I'm gonna, and you can always tell when he's actually motivated by something real, right? Where he says, I'm gonna take away everything that you have, just like Batman did to me, and I don't really know what he's talking about.
Yeah, no, Joker in the animated series, for the most part, is nowhere near as twisted as his comic book counterpart, and so there was always some kind of logic to what he's doing, and to kind of just skimp on that here is a little bit bizarre.
It sounds like a reference to something that happened in the movie already. It's really confusing. Again, I realize these are episodes and not really a movie, but like, we don't. Usually, if we're calling back to something that happened in an earlier episode, we make it really clear that's what we're doing, because these were intended to be watched on their own.
Yeah,
even sequels to other episodes, they made sure we had enough recap that we could watch on our own. So I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I agree with you. We talked over it a couple minutes ago. I like pointing this out because I love Batman Beyond's costume. Batman has those claws in his gloves, which is another thing he uses in the Batman Beyond design later.
That's great. It's like we're setting it up, and as you said, that's 2 years after this.
Or yep, we still got time.
4 years out. Was that 99 or was it 01?
I thought it was 99. Yeah, I think it was 99. The first episode, Rebirth, looks a lot like this, so it's probably just a couple years. I keep feeling the need to mention that, mostly because my favorite Batman costume in general is the Batman Beyond suit.
I think it's important to note that we are at the tail end of the cell shading days.
That's true, yeah.
And that you can still, in places here, see dust on some of the cells. Once we get to Justice League, it'll be done digitally and cleanly, and you won't see that anymore. I
miss cell shading. I understand why we moved away from it, but some things I think just look better that way. Here is the same exact animation with the marbles.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, and you know what's crazy about that? They don't even try to mask the fact that the background is the same.
Yep.
Because you have an open door there that's not on that airplane, and that, wow! I'm glad you pointed that out. That is preposterous. That is Nostra preposterous.
It's Nostra preposterous. Yeah, no, that's fun. The marbles, like you said, are a good gag. I like that. That was his one-upmanship to Superman, and that's
maybe it is that they're clanking against each other. Maybe that is why they explode. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say. I like that Joker uses those to escape earlier, and now they're the reason he loses.
And do you think that I'm right that that's the reason he's laughing? That this whole thing was about how he's unpredictable, and that's why he can take out Superman, because he's not ready for him, and he's gonna think about the logic of it, and he gets beaten because he was like he didn't even predict himself like what would happen.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right
He
about
takes
that.
himself out. Maybe that's the one time where Joker would be okay about being the butt of his own joke.
Yeah, I think so. Joker has very few appearances later, so when he comes back in Justice League, it's a bit of a big deal, and he's kind of a different person there. So at least in my head, the canon's always that Joker realizes that he became stale and predictable around this point, and then just took some time off to come back.
Except you see him like really soon after this in New Animated Adventures. That's when Joker's Millions happens.
Oh no, I mean it's around this time that he gets that realization because everything he does in New Batman Adventures is really stale, and that's the reason he loses.
There is not there's not an episode of that fourth season that anybody thinks about with the Joker. I mean, there's just nothing really memorable for the Joker there.
The Joker is the worst part of it. I still say New Batman Adventures is on par with animated series. There are lots of brilliant episodes. It's just the Joker is one of the weaker elements of it, when Joker's usually one of the stronger elements of the first 3 seasons.
I always like it when someone in a show will say that's funny, and the thing that they say is funny is the thing that I'm actually laughing at. That's always nice. Because when Harley Quinn says, I want a cheese sandwich, yeah, that is funny.
That is funny. We talked about my favorite line, which was when Joker blows up and Harley's like Puddin', and Batman it says, at this point he probably is.
At this point he probably is. And yet, he knows he's not.
Of course, he's the Joker.
Batman knows that he has not seen the last of the Joker. But maybe he's really hopeful, and he's like, maybe the reason that he's all, now I don't know why he's all jovial in the first place, maybe the reason the Batman gets more stolid after this, the Joker came back again, I thought maybe this time.
Have you noticed that in, I think, pretty much every animated movie where Joker is a main character, we do this thing where Joker supposedly dies?
Yeah.
The Batman vs. Dracula does it. This does this. Masked Phantasm does it.
Yeah, that's one of the tropes that I was talking about when I said that this is all about the rules of the comic universe. Lex and Joker end the same way they almost always do.
Well, I mean, more than just the comics, but in every animated outing, it's almost always that this happens to the Joker.
Yeah.
And then, I like that
and then 89 is one of those interesting outliers where he just straight up dies.
Yeah. I still wish we got Batman 5.
There's no coming back from that, friends. And then see, I know I'm talking about 89 again, but I love the idea that Joker still gets the last laugh where he has a thing in his pocket that's laughing for him.
Yeah, that's fun. I like this. I know I complained a little bit all over the place, but I do really like this. It's a fun set of episodes
here and there, but it's quite watchable. It's fun. It's very rewatchable.
Yeah. And it's something that I miss with superhero team-ups, where they don't have to beat each other up constantly. They can just work together.
And we also don't have to take ourselves too seriously and make everything about like a really, really complicated ideological argument. Obviously, I love that stuff, but we don't have to always do that. And it doesn't always have to be super heavy-handed either.
If two people are going after the same goal and they have different methodologies, they will argue, but in the real world, most of the time we look past that to get things done. So superheroes should be able to do that more
And
often.
also, sometimes that argument is inherent, and you don't have to have the characters spelling out what the themes and ideas and the lesson to be learned from it is.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, that is. This episode does, this 3 episodes do a really good job of not hitting you over the head with anything that it's about. It's very fun, it's very natural, and it's good for kids and adults, which is something Bruce Timm was always good at.
I also like, as I said in the rewind, that it's 3 episodes and it is 3 clear acts of a movie.
Yeah, and it functions as a movie. If you edit it together like this and show it to a kid, they probably wouldn't be able to tell that there were breaks.
As I said, I didn't remember it. I mean, when I saw it on TV when I was a kid, I thought that they were re-airing. I thought they were airing a thing that had been put out on video first. Because after all, every now and again, Mask of the Phantasm was on TV.
That's true. Yeah. They always made a big deal out of that when I was a kid, when something like this was airing as a movie as opposed to being separated.
Yeah. Well, 97. It just doesn't feel that long ago to me, Steve.
It doesn't feel that long ago.
I mean, I realized you were like, what?
When this came out,
4?
This was, 97, so I was 3.
You were 3, yeah. And I was 13. Well, anyway, everybody, thanks as always for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and Steve and I will be back with you again shortly for another commentary. We've got all kinds of things that we're going to be doing commentaries on in the near future, so look forward to those. And Steve, thanks for doing this with me, pal. I appreciate it.
No, yeah, no problem. This is, as always, a lot of fun.
We'll see you again next time. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Steve Maxey.